And now a special presentation of The Road to the Kennedy Center Honors with your host, Beau Davidson.
I will survive. I want to rock and roll all night and party every day. I was a young troubadour, the music of the night. Yo, Adrian, I did it. These are all indelible, unforgettable lines from art that has inspired us and withstood the test of time. These lines come from the 5 artists who comprise the 48th Annual Kennedy Center Honors for 2025. They are Sylvester Stallone, Gloria Gaynor, George Strait, Michael Crawford, and the rock band Kiss. In this special presentation, I will take you down the road to the Kennedy Center Honors and showcase the multifaceted paths that led to these 5 honorees' recognition. For many of them, that road has been paved with much triumph, but also a significant degree of tribulation and heartache. Most Kennedy Center honorees have not led easy lives. The life of an artist is a difficult one, where pursuit of craft often creates many personal sacrifices. You'll hear how Sylvester Stallone was a troubled youth who studied the craft of film by becoming an usher at a movie theater. You'll learn how Gloria Gaynor sustained a major back injury before her recording of I Will Survive. You'll get to know a youth stunt actor who used his imagination to create characters in his head, which led to portraying perhaps the most iconic Broadway role of all time. You'll hear how every label in Nashville turned down the artist with the most #1 songs of all time. And something you may already know, that a beloved member of a rock and roll band passed on before receiving his Kennedy Center Honoree Medal. All this and more on the road to the Kennedy Center Honors.
Tonight on Real America's Voice, join host Beau Davidson as we begin the road to the Kennedy Center Honors, a journey through legacy, patriotism, and the artist who shaped America's cultural soul. This is where honor meets history.
This is the road to the Kennedy Center Honors. I'm Beau Davidson. The Kennedy Center has a storied history leading back to the leadership of President John F. Kennedy. The year was 1958. President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed bipartisan legislation establishing a national cultural center in our nation's capital. In 1962, President Kennedy and his wife Jackie launched a $30 million campaign for the center's construction. This Eisenhower and Kennedy collaboration, if you will, marked the bipartisan nature of the center's inception. After President Kennedy was assassinated, Congress passed a law to make this National Cultural Center a living memorial to the late President Kennedy, recognizing his devotion to the performing arts. Its mission is the following: to present classical and contemporary music, opera, drama, dance, and other performing arts from the United States and other countries, to promote and maintain the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts as the National Center for the Performing Arts, to strive to ensure that the education and outreach programs and policies of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts meet the highest level of excellence and reflect the cultural diversity of the United States, and to provide a suitable memorial in honor of the late president. Culture, education, outreach, and maintaining excellence as a living memorial to the beloved president. That is what the Kennedy Center stands for. Each year, the center hosts 2 million visitors, boasts over 2,200 performances and exhibits, and over 400 free performances and events. The Kennedy Center stands as both a microcosm and a promise of American performance arts and a lasting legacy. In this program, we will explore the history, the leadership, the trajectory, and the legacy of this outstanding center that represents the best of the best. We will also profile the 5 esteemed artists who will be honored this year, which include the band Kiss, Phantom of the Opera's Michael Crawford, singer Gloria Gaynor, country singer George Strait, and actor Sylvester Stallone. Words inscribed in marble at the Kennedy Center read, "There is a connection, hard to explain logically, but easy to feel, between achievement in public life and progress in the arts." Under the new chairman of the Kennedy Center, President Donald J. Trump, new measures have been taken to beautify and refurbish part of the building and also to bring it to financial solvency. Trump appointed former ambassador to Germany, Rick Grinnell, to lead these efforts. And on the red carpet, I asked the ambassador what kind of mark he wants to make as he leads the first Kennedy Center Honors event. He said that when he arrived, the Kennedy Center was in tremendous debt, paying staff from reserves. Grinnell said that fringe programming was a major reason for arts institutions being in the red. He needed to make the center fiscally responsible. And since then, corporations have come to the table and donated and believed in the programming of the center. Grinnell is an avid lover of the arts, which is why President Trump appointed him. Grinnell is also a fan of arts education and wants to continue introducing new art to the Kennedy Center. It was confirmed that the Kennedy Center Honors Gala raised $23 million. So Grinnell and his team are certainly bringing the center back to fiscal responsibility. This 48th Kennedy Center Honors is historic in that it is the first time that an American president has hosted the event. And as President Trump made some time for press, I asked him how the artists that he helped select, many of whom are on his personal playlist that he regularly spends at his home for guests, have had an impact on his own personal enjoyment of the arts.
Most of these honorees are on your personal playlist. I'm just curious to know how they have impacted your own personal enjoyment of art.
Well, are you talking about the five honorees? Is there the group and the five honorees? They are outstanding people. I had to approve them all. And every one of them, very different. I said last night, totally different audience, but when you add them up, they're 100% of our country and a big percentage of the world. So we have great honorees. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to have a good time tonight.
Mr. President. Roma Daravi leads the center's public relations team, and she has a background as a ballerina. Given the center's platform for ballet, I wanted to ask her about how an arts education provides a springboard for what could be the trajectory of a future Kennedy Center honoree.
Performing art is one of the most beautiful things you can ever experience as a child. It teaches you discipline, it teaches you love for something that you can strive towards and love for yourself. So I truly believe in the power of the performing arts. I hope that families come to the Kennedy Center and see that firsthand and inspire themselves. We actually have an opera on our stage that is called The Little Prince, and there are children in that performance. So families are going to come here, kids are going to sit in the audience and see kids their own age on stage that will inspire them to dream big, and the Kennedy Center is the perfect place to do that. So we're just thrilled to host the honors tonight and showcase the best of the best that there is. Well, the institution as a whole was really struggling before we got here 10 months ago, but there's been a lot of good work. We've raised a lot of money. We've right the ship in terms of our programming. It is common sense business decisions that are good for the whole nation, and we are excited that the building has funding from President Trump, who is also our chairman. So you'll see a lot of physical renovations that'll be great for our patrons and just make this place more exciting and more alive.
Actor Kelsey Grammer, perhaps best known for the hit series Frasier, was on hand to honor Michael Crawford. And Grammer dealt with a number of personal tragedies as a child, but arts became a refuge for him, which is why arts can be a saving grace to a struggling child.
Oh, it's interesting. Art sort of was a refuge for me. I mean, in the midst of losing my granddad who raised me, that was the first thing when I was 12. That was very tough, but then we actually turned to the arts as a result of that, both my sister and I, and then of course Karen was killed. And I mean, I just wrote a book about that. That's 50 years after the fact. I mean, that's been a lifelong recovery, but a lifelong of simply honoring someone I loved that much and never letting them be forgotten.
What about these five honorees in this class do you like, and what you put your own personal impression upon for the selection?
Yeah, well, we all just got on the phone and started talking about who we thought was great. You know, there were a lot of people that came up, and then this group, Sly was always sort of right in the pocket. Sly and John Voight, you know, I mean, there was a couple other guys, and just thought, you know, come on. So we're going to start with Sly. Maybe we'll get John next year. You know, he's amazing. Gloria Gaynor and I have actually known each other a long time. I've seen her in Jersey a few times, and she sang at a party I gave years ago. I mean, she's just magnificent. I talked about it to her last night about the 100 monkey theory, and she said, I've never heard of that. And I said, well, it's basically the theory that learned behavior after 100 generations becomes instinctual behavior. So they just do it. And it's a fascinating thing, so that every young woman born sings that song fresh out of the womb. I will survive.
When we come back, I interview the disco queen herself, Gloria Gaynor, who speaks from the heart about her legacy in a very faith-focused way. We'll be right back.
Don't go anywhere. The Road to the Kennedy Center Honors will be right back, only here on Real America's Voice. Welcome back to the Road to the Kennedy Center Honors. The journey continues on Real America's Voice.
At first, I was afraid. I was petrified, thinking I could live without you by my side. And after spending nights thinking how you did me wrong, I grew strong, and I learned how to get along. Welcome back to the Road to the Kennedy Center Honors. Certainly anyone with good hearing knows these first few lines to a song that lit the torch of the disco era. But it wasn't just a groove that made you unable to sit still. No. This was an anthem. This melody had accompanying lyrics that would become the heartbeat of anyone who had overcome a personal struggle, financial, emotional, health, relationships. This was a song with real meaning. But the song almost wasn't even recorded. Not just because Gloria Gaynor's record label didn't believe in it, but because she was in a back brace from a significant injury she had sustained on stage. This is Gloria Gaynor. Gloria, I understand that there was always music in your house growing up. What was your first musical memory, if you can recall?
My first musical memory? My mother singing to me. I think that's probably every child's first musical memory. My mother singing to me the songs that she used to sing around the house all the time.
Well, I read in your autobiography that you always wanted to sing, but nobody in your family knew it. Talk about how important it can be to recognize a child's musical abilities and ambitions, since you had to kind of forge your own path.
I did have to forge my own path, and you're absolutely right. It is important that parents and siblings recognize another sibling's or child's musical or whatever kind of talents that they have, their hopes and dreams and desires to forge their way in life with whatever gifts they've been given. Because, I mean, that's what we're all meant to do. That's why we're giving these gifts. And so we all need that support and encouragement to follow through.
Now, Honeybee seemed to be your first real hit. And I'm curious if, when you recorded it, if you thought it would be the hit that it became.
First, when I recorded Honeybee, as a matter of fact, I didn't even want to record Honeybee. I wanted to record, at that time, I was interested in jazz music, and that was what I wanted to record. Clive Davis had that song written for me by Mervyn and Marvin Steele, a couple of brothers who were songwriters. And that was why that was my first recording. After it was recorded and people began to like it and it became a hit, of course, then I liked it as well. And was pleased that I had done it and realized that Clive probably knew better than I did.
Well, Gloria, you've had a tremendous career, but often, we don't really hear about the struggle and tribulations that artists go through. What dark days did you have to personally overcome?
Whenever I recorded, at that time, I think it was the same with all artists, especially female artists, that you were an instrument that was used by the record company. You recorded a song and they did what they thought should be done with it, whether you agreed with it or not. So I'm glad to be at the forefront of that and having had to struggle through that and make my own way, make my own voice heard. Because I found it very difficult at times. I mean, I had many songs, even after that record companies either didn't like or didn't care about and didn't promote, and people never heard of them. So it can be quite a struggle if you don't have people in your corner to help you push through the things that you think are valuable and the things that you believe represent and want to represent you and your talent.
Well, Gloria, I think this story is so interesting. Many might not know that I Will Survive was a B-side song, because the A-side song was a song called Substitute, which took up most of the recording session. You recorded it with a back brace on, and in only about 30 minutes, I understand. The record label didn't really believe in it, so it seems that you had to live the very lyrics of the song for it to become the hit that it is today. Is that true?
Well, yeah, I had to forge my way with that. And the first thing that we did was take it back to the record company and ask them if they would change their minds, if they would switch it and make that the A side, and they would not listen because nobody wanted to go against the song that the president had chosen, which was the other song we call aptly named Substitute. So then we took it to Studio 54, where they had this great, well-known DJ, and we asked him to play it. He very graciously played the song. And when this jaded New York audience stormed the dance floor on the first time of hearing this song, there was no doubt in my mind that we were right. This was a hit song. So we gave him the box of 25 CDs to give to his DJ friends around New York. He did that. And they began to play it. People began to request it, not only in the clubs, but on radio. And well, the rest is history.
Gloria, I understand that in 1982 that you became a Christian. And often we see artists turn away from Christianity in pursuit of self rather than turn to it. Talk to me about this decision in your life and what changed for you.
Well, when I first started to look into Christianity, it was because of what had happened to me with my spine surgery. I was in the hospital laying on my back, not knowing when I was ever going to be able to get up and walk again and not only pursue my career, but pursue life. And so I was calling out to God, as we often do when we get in trouble. And he answered me. He answered me so many times and in so many ways, and gave me so much hope and encouraged me, and just with things and people that were saying things in my life and how my life began to turn around. And it's incredible. It truly is incredible.
Well, your nomination places you among previous honorees such as Ella Fitzgerald, Leontine Price, Marion Williams, Aretha Franklin, Tina Turner, Diana Ross, and Dionne Warwick. Who would you say had the most profound impact upon you and your music career?
Well, Ella Fitzgerald was one of them. And in the beginning of my career, I did listen to Dionne Warwick, and I listened to Barbra Streisand, and I listened to all of these great artists who already had great recordings and great success and great voices. And I listened to them and to help me with my diction and phrasing and vocal acrobatics, so to speak, which doesn't seem to be very prominent among singers today. But those were the things that were at that time, were important at that time, still are important to me, and still are a part of my recordings and my vocals. But those are the people who uplifted and encouraged me without even knowing it, just from what they did with their careers.
Well, Gloria, you became a Grammy winner 40 years after I Will Survive for your gospel roots album, Testimony. And you have a new EP called Happy Tears. It seems that you're not just surviving, but thriving. You think you'll keep making music as long as God allows you to?
I absolutely will. I absolutely will. I can't imagine myself doing anything else. And I often say, I'm like a spinning top. If I stop, I will drop.
Well, Gloria, congratulations on this tremendous honor. And thank you for being such an inspiration.
Thank you so much.
Because I Will Survive is a song that will likely survive for years and years to come, I wanted to know what kind of a legacy she wants to leave. Prior to receiving her award at the gala, her answer was profound.
I want it to be that I shine the light that led them to Christ.
This testimony should not be lost on anyone who enters the entertainment industry. For having rock-solid beliefs and principles can sustain a person in times of great tribulation. When we come back, I profiled the man behind the mask, Michael Crawford.
Don't go anywhere. The Road to the Kennedy Center Honors will be right back, only here on Real America's Voice. Welcome back to The Road to the Kennedy Center Honors. The journey continues on Real America's Voice.
Close your eyes and surrender to your darkest dreams. Leave your thoughts of the life you knew before. Let your soul take you where you long to be. Only then can you belong to me. These iconic lyrics come from Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera, which has led an extraordinary run on Broadway. The man behind the mask was Michael Crawford, a British child actor and stunt actor who had a wild imagination. I asked him how having such a vivid imagination paved the way for playing such an iconic character.
My favorite people were Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, Laurel and Hardy, all those people, because that was drama. It was drama that they played with comedic physicality. And that introduced me to, I loved making people laugh. And I love doing. I mean, I did a stunt sequence on roller skates that went in between the front and the back wheels of a moving truck, and people say, "Oh my God, you're so brave!" And I said, as a kid, you would give anything to be able to do things like this on roller skates, but you'd be arrested. And I was doing it and I was getting paid for it. So I was really, it was a great career playing comedy. I love playing comedy.
Well, my last question is, did you ever think as a boy you would wind up on a president's playlist?
I still can't believe that.
Growing up, I volunteered at the Orpheum Theater in Memphis, Tennessee, so that I could see Phantom as many times as I wanted. Theater tickets were expensive, and this allowed me to explore my own imagination of what kind of art that I wanted to explore. The Phantom perhaps began a series of downtrodden creatures that audiences fell in love with. He was the man who loved, but was never loved in return. People found compassion for the Phantom and his loneliness, and understood his rage. Michael Crawford gave this lonesome gargoyle creature a heart and a soul and a voice, a magnificent voice. Because Crawford had already achieved a certain level of career notoriety by the time he was cast, I wanted to know what it was about the role of the Phantom that created such a global impression.
It was a beautiful piece of music. It was, I found, a drama when I heard it. It wasn't demonic. It was, and they had recorded it as a rock thing, like Phantom of the Opera, and I saw it as a drama rather than anything else. And so I wanted to delve into the man that had never been loved, never been held, never been touched by a mother. And so to imagine that and to find the truth in it, it became a very plaintive sound, a message that you could be tender and then ferocious. It had the temper because he became very violent. I have to look at that side too, but the main thing was that he loved. He discovered love, and if you sing that from deep inside you, you find that love, and it makes you weep every night. And when the thing is over, and when we were designing it, Sarah Brightman in rehearsal, she just dropped the veil one night, and I picked it up and I just stuffed it on my face, and I sang the last 3 lines into it, and they kept it in because it was, if you've ever lost somebody, and you can smell the people themselves in a piece of clothing, and it just is you got to convey that, and to do that with the character.
In spite of Michael Crawford's stardom, it is perhaps his graceful humility and passion for the craft of creating this iconic role that places him in a class all by himself. His music of the night will continue to play in our hearts forever. When we return, we learn about how the movie Rocky got made and how a misfit boy who was kicked out of a number of schools found his niche. We'll be right back with more of The Road to the Kennedy Center Honors.
Don't go anywhere. The Road to the Kennedy Center Honors will be right back, only here on Real America's Voice. Welcome back to The Road to the Kennedy Center Honors. The journey continues on Real America's Voice.
This unforgettable theme song has become etched in our souls as Rocky's theme, the boxer who toughed it out and overcame all odds. But how did Rocky get made? Sylvester Stallone was a kid born with facial paralysis who was expelled from dozens of schools. He worked odd jobs, including cleaning the lion cages at Central Park Zoo. For young Stallone, he said he looked like a villain, so he played one on screen. But Stallone wanted to know why great movies were truly great. He needed to see why some script dialogue lines landed and others did not. Now, the only way he knew to study this was by going to see films in the theaters. So he did what I did as a kid. He became an usher and got to see as many films as he wanted to for free. And he took pen to paper to start his craft of writing. When he auditioned for one particular film, the producers passed on him for the part, and Stallone mentioned that he was a writer. And in that moment of serendipity, the producers asked what he had written. He said he had a script. That script was Rocky. And those producers made that very film.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you wanna be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that.
Stallone said that he never intended to become an action star with unforgettable roles such as Rambo, but it was Stallone's internal fortitude and physical strength that enabled him to embody these roles and become the action hero that we all wanted to be. Stallone now continues to put pen to paper with the hit show Tulsa King, where he insists that he is merely playing himself.
I've always thought of life as like this one-way street, and you head down it, and as you do, it sort of disappears behind you. So, you can only go one direction, forward. And looking way down there, you see a city, but it's on fire, and it's red hot. And like I said before, you can't go back once you've started this damn journey. You can only go forward.
Even cabinet secretaries like Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick have been affected by Stallone.
You know, Rocky was in all of our lives. If you're my age, 64, you know, Rocky and Rambo were there all the time.
Stallone was honored by his brother Frank, who tearfully remarked that it was he and his brother who came from nowhere and through grit and courage wound up somewhere. When we come back, I highlight the legendary career of the king of country music, George Strait. We'll be right back.
Don't go anywhere. The Road to the Kennedy Center Honors will be right back, only here on Real America's Voice. Welcome back to The Road to the Kennedy Center Honors. The journey continues on Real America's Voice.
Sometimes I feel like Jesse James, still trying to make a name, knowing nothing's going to change what I am. I was a young troubadour when I wrote in on a song. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Welcome back. Another Kennedy Center honoree is the great George Strait. He has come to be known as the king of country music by critics and writers, or to many in the music world simply as King George. Strait has sold over 120 million records worldwide, making him one of the best-selling artists of all time. He holds the Recording Industry Association record for most certified albums by any artist. Strait is credited for his traditional approach to country music and noted for his authentic cowboy image. Strait's career began while working as a rancher by day and performing with his band Ace in the Hole at honky tonks by night. Many may not know that Strait enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1971, was stationed in Hawaii, became a corporal, and then was honorably discharged in 1975. Strait very rarely gives interviews, so I have asked his longtime producer, Tony Brown, to give us some intimate insight into George's musical career in a way that only a true musician can do. Tony, thanks a million for joining me today.
My pleasure. Anything for George Strait.
Absolutely. Well, Tony, you've been the architect of over 100 number one hits. That's a ton. But growing up, you were a gospel music piano player who came to Nashville knowing very little about country music. But because Elvis Presley loved gospel, you would go over and play in the gospel band at his house and then in the TCB band. Some might call that luck. Others might call it a God thing. How do you view your early days in music that transitioned from gospel to country music?
It has to be a God thing. I mean, I would have never in a million years think that I would be the president of a record company, and much less producing the biggest country music star there was, or even playing with Elvis Presley, as far as that goes.
It's incredible, honestly, that you came from performing in his house band, and then eventually you became an A&R man at MCA Records. So at what point, Tony, did you hear about George Strait, and then how did you come to be his producer?
When I came to Nashville in '69, I was still in gospel music, and I really wasn't into country music at all. After touring with Emmylou Harris for a couple of years, she turned me on to country music, And then when I got back to Nashville, I decided to quit playing piano and get into the record business. And George had just started to break then. And it's pretty much a phenomenon because they would go, "What's the deal with this guy? He just walks on stage and the people go crazy like Elvis. He just walks around stage and does nothing, you know." And so I've always been kind of analytical. So I started studying who this guy was. And I first went to a session. He was doing a McDonald's commercial. And I was going, I don't get what the deal is with this guy, but who knew that maybe 5 years later I would be his producer, which I consider myself very lucky that that happened.
Yeah, again, that's why, as I mentioned, some people might call it happenstance, others a true God wink in many ways, or a divine providence. As I reviewed George Strait's career, Tony, it was interesting to me to learn that his bar owner pal Irv Woolsey tried to get Nashville interested in George, but it seems that everyone on Music Row turned him down. And this is a very common thing that you hear about sometimes in stories of incredible artists. So he was about to take a job offer designing cattle pens, but his wife said, just give it one more year, and he got a one-song deal with MCA. Walk me through the early part of his career where many would-be legends might simply give up, and probably have.
Well, I was at RCA Records at that time when he first signed to MCA. So I only heard about him just from the news and the noise he was making as an artist. And, you know, and I know they did try to get him to take his hat off, and he wouldn't do it. And he sort of created what we call the hat acts, you know, like Alan Jackson, Garth Brooks, Clint Black, and so on and so forth. So all of a sudden, all these hat acts appeared. Now there's like cap acts. Everybody wears a baseball cap backwards. But George stuck to his guns, and you know, me being in the business as long as I have, I'm an analytical person. I think the thing about him that's so amazing that he's never tried to reinvent himself. Most artists seem to try to do that. They think it's trying to create a new image or a new brand. George has stayed the same consistently. I think that's the magic to his career.
Yeah, Tony, I do want to get into some of his musical trajectory and how he stayed true to everything that he always was. But in 1992, you became his longtime producer, and your first album together is Pure Country. Now, Tony, I have a great professional relationship with Steve Dorff, the writer of the song I Cross My Heart. It's near and dear to my heart. But because I know the story behind this song, that it had been pitched to Boys to Men, who didn't like it. Bette Midler recorded it, who did, according to them, not a great rendition of the song, and then ultimately played for George, who commented that it was a nice song, but not one of Steve Dorff's best. Is this a great example of the kismet that only happens when a great song gets married to a great artist and the providential road that leads to that?
Yeah, you know, I'm learning things about this song I never even knew. I know when I was asked to do Pure Country, it was my first album with George. And up to that point, he'd been selling platinum, which is 1 million records. And that record sold 8 million copies. So my first shot with George was a good way to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to I Cross My Heart, when you had George record that, again, because it sounds like he wasn't all that crazy about the song, did you know, just your musical ear, that song would become one of the greatest country ballads of all time?
No, I've cut several songs with George that I realized would be big. Like Troubadour was a big song I thought would be big. I Crossed My Heart, I had no idea how big that song would be because it's a ballad for one thing, a real pop, lush ballad.
Mm-hmm.
And it became the biggest song on the record. I mean, Heartland was the first single, was a big hit, but Cross My Heart was so big. And it was a big part of the movie too. The love scene with the girl in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to credit, again, my buddy Steve Dorff for writing Heartland and I Cross My Heart, just an amazing songwriter. Well, you produced 17 studio albums, I believe, with Strait, and 37 number ones.
I've done 20 albums with George.
Oh, 20. Okay, even more, even better. 20 and 30 and 37 number ones. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
I think that's the thing that I'm proud of, is because, I could have maybe cut 4 or 5 in a row and then lost my magic, but I kept it going to the very end. So,
yeah, you've had an incredible career with him, and I'd love for you to just give our viewers just a glimpse of what it's like to work with him and make that magic in studio.
Well, if you know anything about the recording business. In Nashville, most artists use session players. Musicians who live in town, and you create a band to play on records. Most artists don't use their road band on records. We hire musicians, and George has a certain group of people he's hired for every session that I did. The same exact band, and they become his band for that record, and they just we go in the studio. It's just like second nature. Everything just sort of falls into place so easy.
Yeah, and it seems like he's very faithful to those guys too, and I'm sure that those musicians appreciated it.
One of the musicians, a piano player, had moved to L.A. and we cut in Key West when I was cutting him, Key West, Florida, and it's hard to get a flight into Key West. And the piano player had just gotten married, and it was his wife was expecting the day of the first day of his sessions. So he called and said, "Hey, I can't make the session. My wife's expecting today. I can't make it." I told George I had to hire a replacement for this guy. And George says, "Does he not enjoy playing on my records?" I said, "George is his first baby, my God, give him a break." But George doesn't like strange. He likes his comfort zone is the same players, same engineer, same studio. And we pretty much cater to the same writers too. Dean Dillon wrote the majority of the songs. And I sort of knew what kind of songs fit George. Me and George pretty much saw eye to eye on songs that fit him really good.
Yeah, well, it seems like he values the consistency of those players and who's around him, which I think a lot of those musicians in Nashville certainly appreciate. You know, Tony, because you've worn both the producer and the A&R hats in your career, you've seen the ebbs and flows and changes in country music. But George Strait, to borrow his name, was always straight as an arrow when it came to the music. It didn't waver or fall privy to fads. You mentioned this earlier, so talk about the artist George Strait and why his music has just been always authentically George.
Well, I don't think, he's, I don't consider himself, he's always been called the Frank Sinatra of country music. And when you think of Frank Sinatra, you don't think about Frank Sinatra as being a singer as just as much as being a star celebrity. I mean, Celine Dion's a singer, right? But George he's just, when he sings a song, it sounds like he's every man's voice. I think every man thinks I could sing like that, but they can't. But George, he's just so natural for him. We would find songs that fit him. I remember one time when John Michael Montgomery had "I Swear," which was a big pop crossover. The writer who wrote that song sent me a song for George, which would have been a great song for John Michael Montgomery. So I showed it to George because I thought it was a hit. And George says, "This is a great song, but what are you thinking? I think John Michael Montgomery should cut this." And I said, forgive me. I'm sorry about that. But I sort of started learning what was in his comfort zone, what fit him. He never tried to push the envelope, but he didn't play safe. He just never tried to push the envelope because he thought I needed to change. He just was so consistent, and making records with him is absolutely the easiest production things I've done in my life. So natural.
Well, it's interesting to me you say this because I think it takes a true artist to recognize what their capabilities are, what they're comfortable with, what they're willing to do, what they're not willing to do, and what ultimately will make a better record and a better song. And it sounds like George, I mean, how many artists would have listened to "I Swear" and been like, I don't care whether I can sing it or not, I'm going to sing it because it's an amazing song. It's been a hit for obviously many, many different people. So that's interesting that it takes a true artist like George to recognize this isn't for me, but it is for someone else. And I think that humility is incredible too.
That's the thing I love about George. He was pretty much knew pretty quickly whether it would fit him or not. And of course, as an A&R person, I just look for hit songs. And hit songs usually have a hook, chorus, or whatever. But after that little experience, I was a little shy about pitching him songs. We did a John Prine song called "I Want to Dance with You," and I would have never in a million years thought George Strait would do a John Prine song, but it seemed to fit him. It was one of his biggest hits, the #1 song, but it just seemed so natural. And I remember playing for George, and George said, "What are you thinking?" I said, "I think that's a #1 song for you." And so George cut it, and it was #1.
Well, Tony, you've got the golden ears when it comes to that. That's for sure. And to speak to that, you were just inducted in the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2025, which is such a big honor, and we salute you for that. And George has said that you will leave a big footprint in the music world. If there's one album or even one song with George that you feel like defines your career with him, what would it be?
Troubadour. And that's the only album we won a Grammy with. We won a Country CMA Award Album of the Year. They won a Grammy for that album as well. But the song was such a magic George Strait song. And he sang it at my induction. I didn't know he was going to be there, so I was surprised he came out and sang Troubadour. And needlessly made me feel like somebody.
Well, Tony, you have a lot of humility to yourself too, and I've read several articles about you where it just seems like again, people could say right place, right time, but obviously it took a certain amount of your own talent as an AR man, as a producer, as a gospel player to get you to work with two amazing legends, Elvis Presley and George Strait. When you think about the annals of time and the chronology of music, I was at the ACM Artist of the Decade Honors years ago when many artists came out to perform George's songs for him. And the one that blew me away, I gotta say, was Jamie Foxx singing You Look So Good in Love in this R&B way that I think really struck George. Let's take a look at it real quick.
I just want to say this. You look so good in love. Oh, you want him. That's easy to see. Oh, you look so good in love. Well, I wish you still go on.
Do you think, I looked at George's face, was he as surprised as he seemed, and what does he think of other artists covering his music?
Well, we never really talk about those kind of things, but I think he was surprised that Jamie could sing that song. I mean, I didn't know that of course, Jamie had that film about Ray Charles, which proved he could sing.
Yeah.
But that night was totally a surprise for everybody in the audience, including me and George. And I thought Jamie did a killer job on it.
Oh, he did. He did. It was, and did you suggest this to Jamie that he do this?
No, none of us knew what all the artists that sing songs as a tribute to George on that show is a surprise to the artists. So I don't think anyone knew that was going to happen. It was except the people at ACMs.
Well, I think what's so cool about that is that Jamie talked about being in Texas and being inspired by George and how sexy his music was, and then this magic happened. I was floored. I was just flabbergasted about how great it was and the spin he took on it, the originality and the artistry he brought to it. And as you mentioned, his performance in Ray was incredible too. George is going to be honored, of course, why we're doing this for the Kennedy Center, but I feel like George is not really a guy who rests on his laurels or values high praise. So as you look back at so much great music with George, I bet no honor could really encapsulate that for you or for him. So tell me what's been meaningful to your life and what George's legacy will be.
I just think that he was true to his own artistry, and I was happy to join him in that mission, because I never wanted to change what he was, because it was so magic. I remember people would say, "What is it about George Strait? He just walks on stage and people go crazy." It's called, when you're good, you're just good. Of all the songs I've cut with George, one of my favorite things was a song called "Run." A real contemporary thing, but a very cool song. If you haven't heard that song, go check it out. But man, my time in the studio with George has been totally fun and rewarding, to say the least.
Well, 20 albums and so many hits later, Tony, you've just been part of a musical legacy that I think is so worthy of adulation and emulation, and I appreciate your kindness and your humility, and of course your time here today. So thank you so much, Tony.
I'm honored. Thank you very much.
When we come back, we profile the band that had us rocking and rolling all night and every day.
Don't go anywhere. The Road to the Kennedy Center Honors will be right back, only here on Real America's Voice. Welcome back to The Road to the Kennedy Center Honors. The journey continues on Real America's Voice.
I want to rock and roll all night and party every day. These are the lyrics that come from Paul Stanley when he approached Gene Simmons about merging that idea with a tune Gene Simmons had called Drive Me Wild. That collaboration would become an anthem. It was the music of Kiss, a band comprised of Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley, and Peter Criss, a quartet of musicians who put on face paint and costumes to stand out in the crowd. That band that formed in 1973 in New York City became legendary, and their music has withstood the test of time. Sadly, lead guitarist Ace Frehley passed away in October before the band could accept their prestigious Kennedy Center honor. And on the red carpet, I spoke to all three remaining members of the band, beginning with Paul Stanley, reflecting on the band's legacy.
My mother fled Germany to avoid the concentration camps with hours to spare, and came to America, saw the Statue of Liberty, saw the American flag, had parents who didn't abuse the system but used the system to help elevate their children to what they didn't have. My father the same. It's humbling. I'm the result of the American dream, and that it is alive and well. The playing field's not always even. People don't always have it the same advantages. Some have more disadvantages, but you find out how much something is worth by how much you're willing to work to achieve it.
What's the one moment about Ace Frehley that makes you smile?
That he was looking forward to this, and that doesn't change even with his demise. He's here in spirit. I believe very much that spirits live on through us.
Paul, what would you like for the legacy of KISS to be as you think back on your illustrious career?
That we are about, I've always been about self-empowerment. We're about believing in yourself, hard work, and what that hard work can give you. If something's easy, it's probably not worth the time.
Bass guitarist Gene Simmons has been more vocal in recent days, advocating with President Trump for the American Music Fairness Act, which aims to compensate recording artists for radio airplay. He spoke firstly about the privilege of being American, and then about his recent advocacy.
Every day has been just amazing. And, you know, we have the Hollywood Star Walk of Fame and this award and that award, and we got, you know, it's appreciated.
You really got it.
But the first and biggest prize is living in America. People, you know, people who are born here have a problem with that. They think patriotism and love of America is cornball. Pay what I'm going to do to you, buddy. I'm going to give you a free round-trip ticket, maybe one-way ticket to Iran, North Korea, anywhere in Africa, Southeast Asia, all these places. Let me know how fast you want to come back crying to America. We have more illegal immigrants in America, approaching 20 million, than most of the countries in the world have populations, for one reason. Because America is the best country on the planet. There's just no way else to do it. That's exactly what it's about, that the American Fair Music Act will get passed, and you take into consideration that the Elvis Presley estate, Frank Sinatra estate, the largest artists of all time, have never gotten paid when you heard them on the radio. Think about this for a second. Writers, producers, record companies, everybody got paid. When you hear Elvis, I turn on my radio station to hear my favorite artists. Their performance, they get paid zero for. We have to change that because it's just not fair. You go to see a Brad Pitt movie because Brad's in it. The studio gets paid, the distributor, the exhibitor. Brad doesn't get paid. Well, I'm going to see the movie because of Brad. I spoke briefly with the president. It will get passed. It's a bipartisan hearing, and I'm proud to be there to represent not just artists of the past, but the future artists of America. We invented this thing called rock and roll, blues, rap, you know, all that stuff. Came from here. How about giving our artists what they're due?
Drummer Peter Criss is known for the band's sweeter side with his beautiful ballad, Beth, which was the B-side to Detroit Rock City. The band did not do ballads. However, many men can relate if they can't be home with their wives because they were working. So once again, KISS produced another relatable hit. This time, they went straight to the heart. So this is KISS, a band that has been entertaining audiences since 1973. And this is the story of many legends whose passion, courage, and tenacity persevered through many tribulations to attain ultimate success. And whether it was Michael Crawford's vivid imagination, George Strait's authenticity, KISS's perfect musical mixture and connection with their audience, Sylvester Stallone's Rocky and Rambo-like courage, or Gloria Gaynor's spiritual fortitude, all 5 honorees represent something magical and pure about the arts and American culture. They also represent excellence. To be an artist, you must have a certain type of courage and self-confidence that few have in order to weather the storms of a tumultuous business and the ebbs and flows of career tides. When I think about every single music label ignoring George Strait, Gloria Gaynor singing "I Will Survive" in a back brace, Sylvester Stallone walking out and saying to producers, "Well, you know, I write too. Want to read this new script of mine?" I realize that to be an artist means to have tremendous courage. Their music and films don't just entertain us, they inspire us. How often have you heard the theme to Rocky and thought, "I can do this"? Or heard George Strait's Heartland and it made you remember where you came from? Or listen to "I Will Survive" in that moment of desolation or personal breakup? The artists and their art move us. That's exactly what they intended to do. It is a transcendence, a transfer of emotion between storyteller and audience. So to these 5 Kennedy Center honorees for 2025, we salute you, we commend you, we honor you. From the highest office in the land to the unknown person in the heartland whose life was changed by your art. John F. Kennedy would be proud.
You're watching The Road to the Kennedy Center Honors. Thank you for joining us here on Real America's Voice.